Hey y'all, thank you for clicking on my audio to listen to the Self Love Mystic. Today is Sunday, February the 15th, and I am still on my sacred sabbatical. I have 2 weeks left this week, and then one more full week. And I, excuse me. I've been thinking about what I like to do to channel and process my energy. I'm all about information. And that makes sense for me because I am a sun sign. Look, I gotta go to my astrology, I don't care. Sun sign Aquarius, midheaven Gemini. My rising sign, my ascendant is Virgo, which is also communication, ruled by Mercury. But it's 29 degrees Virgo, so my first house is basically Libra. So it's like my rising sign by degree is Virgo, but my energy do be a lot of Libra. And so my communication points, my major points of energy, just major energy points are communication. It's built around communication. So I was just thinking about that today as I'm sitting at home, not doing much, but enjoying my alone time. And I was thinking about that, and it came to me that is something you really like to do, and you like to listen, talk, write. Those are 3 things that I really like to do. I also like to read, but it has to be something at this point in my life, really interesting, something maybe even life-changing for me to read it. I don't really just be reading about just stuff that just don't matter to me, just to learn it anymore. I did a lot of that growing up. I would read a whole lot just for escapism, just to go take my mind somewhere else, anywhere else but my actual life, And then also a lot for learning because I was in school for a long time. I got my master's degree, so I did a lot of reading that way as well. So yeah, these days it's more it have to be something very, very significant. But other than that, I do still like to listen to information. I still like to consume information that is helpful to my growth, but just more so through listening these days rather than reading. Because I like to close my eyes and take in the information, and reading with my eyes, that's total opposite. So yeah, audiobooks I can listen to audiobooks, but again, it has to be a very special audiobook to keep my attention. But I like to listen to other creative, mystical, divine souls, other people who are tapped into divinity and divination like I am, that I feel connected to when it comes to, again, my real life. So anyway, I was thinking about that today. Cindy, that's something you like to do. Listen, you like to talk, you like to write. So this communication stuff. So I feel and then what's crazy, I just finished watching this movie, bro. I just finished watching this movie, and it was about this girl, that lady, the pretty lady, Mila. I don't know her last name by heart, but she used to date Ashton Kutcher. And she was in the 70s show. That 70s show. So she played a character in this movie called The Luckiest Girl Alive on Netflix, and I just watched it. And that's so crazy because it's a story that I highly relate to. Actually, I had to lay back. At one point, I had to pause the movie because then I realized like how similar it was to something I've experienced myself. And I was like, is this one of them crazy situations like in Black Mirror where the girl was watching the show and the show was her story? The show was her life. I was like, yo, this is crazy because something happened to the girl her character in The Luckiest Girl Alive that, I mean, I literally went through something that was almost to the T, almost, but just with some, you know, some edits, but it was like based on a true story, like my story. But then what was also crazy, or not crazy, but when she finally told her story, like with all honesty, because she had been kind of putting pieces out there, but they weren't true. Then it was all these women responding to her essay. Yeah, I think that's significant. It was an essay, and now all these women were responding like basically the same thing happened to them, you know. And it's something that's like I don't really struggle so much with. It's an interesting situation. I didn't really want to talk about it because I feel like it's such a thing of my past, but there is one link that still connects me to the situation that occurred. And it even in the movie, it's like it becomes so complex, especially when you're considering the youth of everybody involved, the alcohol or drugs, you know, and then post events, right? Post the situation, the shame, and even with her again, I really related because then there's the part of like I'm not a stupid girl. Like I'm not stupid. Like I'm smart. I take my my brain development seriously, or obviously not seriously enough because I was drinking. But I remember I was drinking because I was depressed behind something going on with my brother. I literally remember I was drinking because I was depressed and I was partying with my friend who it was like the party king. And yeah, I mean, when you simplify it, the correct terms to apply to that situation was that I was raped. Now, I've always struggled with that a little bit of understanding like exactly what happened and what do I call it and who do I blame? Like, is anybody else at fault aside from myself, for basically giving up control of my body and my mind because I was unconscious when stuff was happening with me? But then I think about my favorite therapist that I ever had. She's based in California, where I'm from. And I remember how she pulled that story out of me one time because it came up in my head as I was talking to her about something. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I know it was in relation to my adoptive mother. And that's crazy too. Because, yep, in the movie, her mother dismissed her when it came to what she went through. Her mother was about their image, and she was literally saying, oh my God, what are people going to say? And she wasn't even looking to learn all of the details and like how she could help her daughter. She instead, oh, now I'm going to start crying. Shit. It's not as easy for me to cry as it used to be. So I be real confused sometimes now about like, how am I truly affected by this or that? Because it used to be much more easier for me to pick up on how I'm affected by things because my emotions were not held back. But I think I have just grown. I don't think I'm numb to things. I've chosen healing over and over and over again. So I don't think it's that. I just think it's that I've grown a lot in my emotional development. And I think it's just a matter of relearning myself as an as a more emotionally intelligent person. It's like, it's a period of time for me where, because I have a new therapist and I've been trying to explain this to her as well. Like, my emotions are different now. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to, if like, I don't know if I'm holding something in, if there's something blocking my emotions. Like, I don't want that to be the case. That's why I signed back up for therapy, because it was something that happened recently where I'm like, I don't really feel a whole lot, And I'm thinking, damn, is this a problem? Do I need therapy again? Like, am I gonna just go off from the handles one day because of a trigger and da 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 da? Like, I think about that kind of stuff. So, right now, when I just started to feel emotion again in relation to this situation I'm talking about from the past related to this movie, it caught me off guard a little bit. But I don't know. I think I'm just having to learn myself again as a more emotionally intelligent person, but it's like a gradual change. Yeah, it's like a gradual change that is happening within myself. So the part that got me about to cry right now is that in the movie, the girl's mom, like, was was so much more concerned about her daughter, um, her daughter's interactions with these dudes, the dudes who actually, three of them, three different ones who raped her, like molested her and raped her. Two of them raped her. One of them molested her by um, doing oral sex on her when she was unconscious. And what's crazy about the movie and my story is just fucking crazy, because I promise I was in the bathroom when I came to. And so I'm listening to the movie and I'm like, she had already sent her essay and now it's going viral. And one of the responses was like one of the women who responded and is like sharing her thoughts, like basically, thank you for sharing your story. Now you gave me hope that I could share my story. And one of the girls says, you're basically saying what the writer said about her the moment she came to, like, stuck out to her, because in her situation as well, it was like this, the moment of coming to. And now you're realizing, like, you're in a position that you didn't even know you was in, and so that happened to me too. And so the other part to it for me, I think, is also something like spirit telling me, like, yo, you're not alone. Like, this is not just a you thing. Like, this really is a big fucking deal. Like, this happens across the board, you know. And what I think the saddest part of it all is, like, my adoptive mother, when I finally told her what had happened, and also looking at the movie, when the girl was trying to tell her mom what happened, and they shut it down. They shut it down. And the mom even came back around in the movie as the girl is now older and she's still struggling with this stuff, because I would say the main rapist, even though that's what I hate, getting into like the nuances, because it becomes very strange to like describe and talk about. But in the movie, the girl had three perpetrators and they all were friends. And the third one, he aggressively, clearly raped her. Like, by that point, she was awake, she was verbal, she realized what was going on, she was conscious, she was trying to clean herself up after she realizing, like, she had started bleeding. She was she was, because she had been drunk. But here's the other part to it that I don't even know if they brought up. I didn't see it brought up nowhere in the movie, because I always felt like when it was my situation that happened, I felt like it was a possibility that there was something else in the drinks at some point, or I would slip something, because I never had been so blacked out before. I don't think that day. But also, I knew that I wasn't like really eating food, and I knew I was drinking a lot. So it was, it could have been just the alcohol, but it just felt to me like damn, like, was there something else? Like, cause I was out, like, really, I was not there, you know. And so, anyways, um, but yeah, the mothers, like my mother, that mother in the movie, just shut it down, right? So I know I've just gone all over the place. I didn't think I was gonna talk about this, but might as well. So my therapist, it was my favorite therapist ever that I've ever had. I've had several. She was my favorite, and um, I still sometimes want to be like, can I just, maybe I'll just move back to California for a little bit just to have her as my therapist again, because I moved out the state so that she couldn't remain as my therapist no more. So anyways, I just remember when she pulled it out of me because I was talking to her about something in relation to my adopted mother. And then what happened is I remember doing this like heavy sigh, like, oh, and I like threw my head back, because it was the memory that had come to mind when I had went to her to tell her about what had happened. And I wasn't about to speak on it right then. It was just a memory that was related to whatever I was describing to my therapist about my adopted mom. And she noticed what I did, and she stopped me. And I remember it was meeting over video, and I saw her. She stopped me. She said, "What was that right there? What was that?" And I remember feeling a little like wow, like this is important, So she made me like talk about that memory, because that's what it was that made me like kind of stop whatever I was saying. And like she just knew that whatever I was doing, all the nonverbals, just it meant there was something. So I had to tell her what it was in terms of the memory. And the memory went like this, okay? The memory was, and this is the memory of me going to my adoptive mother to tell her what had happened. And I'm telling my therapist, I said, well, yeah, because I went to her to tell her about a situation that had happened when I was at a friend's party and got drunk and got too drunk, blacked out, and was basically sexually violated, you know. And I went to my adoptive mother. I remember walking into her room and she's on the bed, and my stomach is sick. Stomach is sick, bro. Like, and I'm so confused because by this point, I'm a young adult. I'm like early 20s. And um yeah, I'm sick. I'm sick to my stomach. And I needed to talk to somebody that I felt like knew better than what I did, maybe could assist me with figuring out what is going on in my head. How am I supposed to be looking at the situation? Like, I don't even know what to feel besides shame. Like, I didn't know what else to feel besides ashamed, you know? And so being somebody raised by her to be like extra responsible, but also I feel like it's in my nature too. I got a lot of Capricorn in my chart. So, but I was also raised, it was nature and nurture, raised to be very responsible, you know, um, very responsible, just, you know, very, very much of other people though, too. Honestly, I feel like when it would come to myself, she would just be, sometimes I feel like she would just be sitting back waiting for me to fuck up my life. I promise. I felt like she would just be feeling like, and she would just be waiting. That's why she didn't do nothing when I came to her about this situation. So what had happened was, you know, I went to her, I let her know like something happened. This was hard as hell already to even talk about it, And I told her, like, I was at the party, I was drinking, I think I drank too much, obviously, blacked out, woke up in the bathroom, and like, I was in the middle of like having sex with somebody, right? And that's putting it in the more nicer, right, tone, because if I'm not there, if I'm not aware, and that's going on, then that is rape, you know? And the thing that used to bother me so much is, I know everybody was drinking. I know everybody was under some type of substance. I don't know exactly what everybody else was doing. I wasn't doing no pills, but I know at the very least, we all was drinking. So then that responsibility part in my mind is like, well, he was drinking, I know, but again, he was aware. And that was the part that really did me in, because I also would like haze this part out. The part that happened after the case, when I'm trying to handle my own situation and be responsible and figure out exactly what happened, and maybe, consider, like, just, I want to know what it is I'm dealing with. Like, do I need to worry about possibly being pregnant? Like, all this kind of stuff. And the guy was my friend, so I'm like, I remember though, I talked to him. Like, my other friend gave me, because he was my closer friend's cousin, but I knew him too. We all grew up together. So, but that was the case as well in the movie. The girl, they were like associates, like she went to the party, like, you know, and I guess she must have had a crush on one of them or something, because I don't think they were dating. I think she had a crush on her closer friend, and it was the same for me. That's the part that really messed me up. Like, wait a minute, this piece here feels a little too familiar. Like, what the fuck is going on? Because my friend who was throwing the party, well, I don't know if he was throwing it, but he's the party guy. Like, he be the one to be making parties happen, or at least his family does. So, but I also had a crush on that friend. That was my closer friend. That was the one who invited me to the party, you know. And me and him had never even had sex at that point. We did later, but not up to that point. And so it was crazy that when I was telling him what had happened, because I also told him, I told him first before my mother, because I just felt like I couldn't hold it all inside of me. Like, I just felt so sick. I remember talking to him about it, telling him, like, I don't remember I don't remember how it got up to me being in the bathroom with his cousin. I remember telling him, like, talking to him about it, but also feeling ashamed because we wasn't in a relationship, but he knew I liked him. He knew I had a crush on him. We've been friends since kindergarten, and I always had a crush on him. And at this point, we was at, like, I don't know, 23. I think it was like 23, maybe. My brother had went to prison, so that was what was really making me depressed, because I had reconnected with him after not growing up with him, finding him, and then he go to prison. So I was very upset and mad. Like, I was a Christian at the time. I was mad at God. I was just pissed the fuck off. I was so mad and hurt. So mad and hurt because I grew up, like, dealing with all these different men violating my body, you know, violating me multiple since I was a little girl, 4 years old, as early as I can remember. And I finally meet my brother, who is younger than me, but he's like big stepper in the streets, right? Like, gangster, just straight all the way G'd out, just like our mama, who was already in prison. And But we clicked, we just clicked like two peas in the pod. And I remember him telling somebody or saying something like, "Oh, sis, like I'm the devil, you the angel," like we was that different in that way. But it was like instant love, like bro sis type shit that I never had, and it felt like this was part of my wounding that I think kept on sending me into these type of situations with guys once I got older, of course. Where I wanted male protection. I wanted my protection to come from a man, whether a father, an uncle, cousin, a brother, friend, boyfriend. I wanted male protection because I felt like it's just supposed to be. That's what I'm told. Godfather talking about, I'm gonna get my shotgun. They better stay away from you. I'm getting my shotgun. That Negro never lifted a finger for my support, and he was a violator too. So when I met my brother, and it really felt like, he can do that. He was the type to do that, and I felt like that was part of the reason, probably, that we had to be separated, because he was that dude that. But also, unfortunately, he was other girls violators or predators. He would pimp, and even despite his young age, like, he was, in a way, he felt older than me too, because he was way experienced in ways that I wasn't, like when he came to the streets and stuff. So he could be a protector if he's around, but he also, unfortunately, was like a destroyer, in a way, because I was in multiple situations, a few different situations with him where I could have gotten hurt, and he wasn't able to. And in those moments, it's like, how could you be a protector of me when I'm actually like enmeshed with your stuff that you going off the handles about? And I could easily be like, you know, um, I guess what they would call collateral damage, you know. So, anyways, I just had always wanted that, like, male protection or whatever. That was a wound, and so when we finally reunited, and that was very clear, like, that he was kind of that embodiment. It felt like a rip, um, like a slap in the face, a punch in the face when he had to go to prison and basically follow in the steps of our mother. And I didn't understand why this was happening. I was a Christian and I was mad at God because I'm like, this don't make no fucking sense. Like, what is this? Like, what story is this? What life story is this? This don't make no sense. So I was really hurt. Even now talking about it, like, it brought up tears. It stopped me, So I was drinking and stuff, yeah, because I was really, like, depressed and hurt and confused on what I wanted to do spiritually, because I just felt like this is all God's fault. Who else would design such a plan? Like, this is the most stupidest shit ever, right? So with my friend now also being a guy, but I also, in my heart, like, hidden, wanted him also as, like, obviously, like, a protector. Like, I just felt like men were supposed to protect. Males are supposed to protect. And me having been so unprotected for so long, I still yearned for that inside. So, yeah. So that was why I was drinking and on purpose trying to, like, just be out of my body. But that wasn't me signing up to be violated, molested, or raped, right? So yeah, I'm trying to tell my adopted mother about the situation and tell her what happened. And again, this is after I've already spoken to my friend, my closer friend, the one I had the crush on, and he wasn't the one that had touched me. It was his cousin. From what I remembered, I had already talked to him. I think I had already talked to the cousin. I wasn't sure, but I did talk to him at some point because I talked to my friend. My friend was like, "Do you want me to give you his number so y'all can talk and stuff?" Because I didn't know the details of the night, And so he gave me the number, and at some point I talked to the cousin who also was my friend. But I can't remember if I did that before or after talking to my adoptive mom when I talked to the cousin. So, but I think it was the same day. So, when I went to my adoptive mom, go to her, trying to tell her she laying down on the bed, and telling her, what happened. And she responds like, so she says something like, so what's the problem? Or so what are you going to do? Or so something like that, where it was like internally there was no sympathy, empathy, no nothing. It was like, I think she said, so what's the problem? I feel like that's what it was. It was like, so what's the problem? Because it was something that caught me off guard so much. Like, what? And then I think I had to go further and like just say whatever. Because then I said like, well, I don't know if he had on a condom. Like, I could, all this stuff where I remember I was so hazed out in my brain because I was just so confused at her response. It was extremely, like, disconnected, detached, dismissive, you know. The conversation wasn't long. I mean, there was not, no consolation and nothing like that. Like, so I think it was after that I talked to the cousin. Because I think I had like texted him, reached out or whatever. And then I think he called me back or something like that. So, but anyway, I remember like sharing that moment with my adopted mama with the therapist that I had. And she validated me so hard. Like, that was wrong. And she said, because I know at the time when I was talking to her, I remembered exactly what my adopted mom said. But now I can't really remember. And it was something, though, along the lines of, so what's the problem? Or, so what are you going to... No, it had to be, so what's the problem? Because it wasn't, so what are you going to do? It was like, because of her saying, what are you going to do, represents like, oh, well, there's a problem. Her expression was, where's the issue? Like, that's what I got from what she said. So it had to be something more along the lines of, so what's the problem? So I remember telling that to my therapist, and she goes, well, no wonder you've had an issue with boundaries. Because I think at that point, we talked about other things, but I'll be honest, I didn't really understand the concept of boundaries before I had that therapist. And I had that therapist. I started therapy with her when I was 31 years old. And my ass did not understand the concept of boundaries. Like, literally the word, that there's a word for it. Like, I had heard of the saying of drawing the line. This is where I draw the line. Or, I had even been in relationships where I'm like, this is what I'm done. Not dealing with you no more. Da 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 da. But if I'm honest, that at that time I still had connections to multiple different people that I did not need to have. But even people I didn't, I remember it was never like, oh, you crossing my boundaries. Like, I didn't really understand the real essence and concept and depth to the idea of boundaries. So when she said that, she's like, knowing you have so many issues with boundaries or so wonder, basically saying like you weren't taught about boundaries. You weren't um, explained or helped when you had these issues come up with boundaries being crossed, or not even boundaries being crossed, but not even having boundaries set, you know. And here's the problem when I think about it now, as somebody who is, I choose to be sober, you know, I realize now it's like, no wonder also I couldn't really have boundaries with other people for real, especially guys, because I didn't have boundaries with myself, you know. For instance, with alcohol, like I would try to have limits or whatever. Sometimes I would like think about it, but once I'm in the party mode and I'm drinking, I would just keep on drinking, you know. So it's like, but say like now I set a boundary of just sobriety with myself because I don't ain't no boundary for me of just a little bit of alcohol. Just that to me just I don't think that's ever really existed. Um, so um, but like say within my drinking, no boundary. Well, when you don't have boundaries with drinking, or you're drinking and partying and you're around certain people with all this going on, with participating in that way, like, and then you with other people who don't have their own boundaries of, oh, she been drinking, maybe I shouldn't like you know go up, maybe I shouldn't mess with her, maybe I shouldn't touch her, you know um and now the worst case scenario is set up to occur. And so when I think about that though, I think like, well, of course I couldn't have boundaries with somebody else or other people if I didn't have boundaries with myself. If I get myself plastered, or I'm drinking in a way with dudes, to where there are no limits, you know, with my drinking. Um, and I guess just having somewhere inside just this seed of trust for who, for what. Like, I just had that. Literally, I just grew up with that. Like, you just start with trust. Never again. But yeah, she was talking to me about boundaries, and she gave me like understanding and validation as to why that was something that wasn't really a part of my mental scope. When I let her know, like this conversation with my adoptive mother, like with a situation that was, I felt like low key designed to break me for real. Um, if I wasn't so like brave about it. Um, and she responded when I let my therapist know, like how my adoptive mom responded to it. She let me know, like, that wasn't the correct response. You know, that wasn't mothering. It wasn't protective. It wasn't helpful. I was basically left to deal with that situation on my own. So that's why I think I didn't talk to the cousin until after that. But I think I might have been waiting to talk to him when I was talking to her. I think I was waiting to like hear back from him. So it's just crazy because I just feel like that was always the bigger issue for me, was the me and her part. And then second to that was actually the part where it was me and my friend's connection and relationship, the one that I actually had the crush on. um, yeah. So it's just interesting, like watching the movie and seeing so many different details and parts. Like even in the movie, like she before the third guy, the one who like aggressively raped her and then lied about it later on and tried to make her seem like um like a slut and a whore, like literally made up a story regarding that situation, so he knew he was wrong. So that was that part too, where in the movie, like he knew he was wrong and lied on her. Um, and so, but I just remember like before he basically found her for his turn, she had been going through the drawers looking for some shorts or something to put on, um, because she had noticed she had started bleeding. So she found somebody's boxers, I think it was. But uh, so the part that gets me is I remember the end of that night, because what happened is I remember I came to in the restroom and I remember I started crying and peeing on the floor. That's how you know I was out of my mind. I'm literally by a toilet. I remember like realizing, because first I wake up, I come to, and I'm on a sink. I'm on the sink, and that's happening with my friend's cousin. So, but I'm coming to, right? So it's like I'm like waking up to the fact that this is already happening. I remember hearing voices, like I'm not really seeing clearly, and so I remember when me and him talked on the phone later because I'm trying to figure out the details, and I asked him like, was there other people in the bathroom, And he was like, I think he said like at times or something like that, like I was pushing him out or something like that. Can't remember full on what he said. I just remember hearing voices, and then I remember but it's like I'm waking up slowly but surely, like gradually, and then I'm fully come online, and I'm crying now, and now I'm squatted by the toilet, crying and peeing on the floor by the toilet. I'm like squatting, like kind of fetal position, but on my feet, crying, peeing on the floor. And I remember him saying something like, "Oh, she's like, yeah, she gone," or something like that. And so then I remember, I was crying, and I remember I think I was maybe hysterical, and I I was asking for my friend, the one I had the crush on, the one that invited me to the party, the one I was mainly there with, and I was like asking for him and asking where he was, and cause I didn't know who it was that I was with in the bathroom. I actually thought when I like woke up, I thought it was him. And then when it became clear, because again, I'm not seeing things clearly, and I kind of hear like Rayshawn in the other room, or he. So they was like, you want me to go get it, and I was like, yeah. And I got taken to the bedroom, and somebody gave me their shorts, their basketball shorts to wear. And I remember it was like still late, I guess. I'm pretty sure my friend was also um, under some influence. He was somewhere else in the house. And I remember, I don't think he had come to me. I think I just remember being taken into the room to lay down. And they gave me some basketball shorts. And I lay down on the bed, and I was crying, and I fell asleep. And I remember at one point waking up and looking over, and he was there. My friend was in the bed, like nearby, asleep. And fell back to sleep. And I remember just being dropped off in the morning, and it felt so, it was like a heavy energy over everybody because there's a bunch of us in the car, and it looked like I had been the only girl that stayed or something like that. I don't know, but again, I had went with my friend, so my friend had picked me up, you know, the one that was like doing his own thing elsewhere in the house. So yeah, I just remember getting dropped off at my adopted mom's house, and I remember because I had a dress on, but that night I had worn my dress with leggings, and my leggings was off, and I had on somebody's basketball shorts getting out the car, super hungover, sick, like it was crazy. And it was just so quiet. Everybody was so quiet, you know. And it's just so crazy because in that movie, the girl had found somebody's boxers or shorts or something, and I noticed because she had ran. She had ran, went to a store, found her old teacher, her teacher, and then the teacher had drove her to his house or something like that. But I just saw when she was getting in the car, I think she had the shorts on with her dress. So it was like the same thing, you know. It was so weird. When I saw that, I said, "This is crazy." And so, oh, but then also the point where she's riding in the car the next day with one of the guys. It was the guy who he raped her too, but it was confusing to her, and I totally understood because it was like you could tell they all was like out of their mind. Like he was sweating and whatever, but she was not clearly able to consent, you know. But he actually, you know, was inside of her. So, and she was like trying to push him off and stuff. But I don't know if I don't think this was her boyfriend. I think they just had a crush on each other or something like that. And so when she was in the car with him, she was like, she said like, I hope you know, like I didn't mean to hook up with anybody else. So that was crazy because I'm looking at that and I'm like, wow, that was almost like how I was talking to my friend the next day when I was telling him like the details of what happened as far as I remembered. And I felt like shame about it because of like my crush on him, you know, feeling like I did something wrong, you know, to our connection, even though we weren't together. And I think he even had a girl there that night that came there to see him or something like that. I don't know. It was a girl there that night, like sitting on his lap and stuff. He called his best friend, introduced me to her. And but I just remember I'm looking at the movie and I'm seeing that and I'm like, wow, that's kind of like the conversation I had with, you know, my friend. But then she goes like, she tells him like, I think I was raped. And then he starts snapping on her. And yeah, snapping on her, you know. Now my friend, he didn't snap on me. He gave me the number to his cousins, you know, his cousin to talk to him, you know. But yet again, a failure in the way of trying to figure out, trying to feel protected, see if I could be protected by my male associates, friends. You know, no, that was not the case. So yeah, just watching the movie, I'm like, this is very interesting. But then it gets me like, how crazy that this very much is something that happens more often than it really, I say than it should, but it shouldn't happen at all, you know. But I do remember talking to the cousin who was also my friend, talking to him a couple of times, and he was open, you know, trying to help me figure out the details or whatever, and I kind of had to get the information I could get and go with what I had, because the other factor to it that was kind of confusing for me was we all were intoxicated. Even though the part that really bothered me was he was able to tell me all the details that I didn't have, which included, like, he told me, like, I was on the wall, standing up against the wall by myself, dancing some song on, and he's like, you don't remember dancing? And I came up to you and we was dancing and then we started kissing. I was like, no, I do not remember that, bro, like, at all, you know. So he's telling me that from his perspective, he saw me as with it, which made it hard for me to believe, because, you know, it's like, if I'm drunk and I'm unconscious and I'm like, it just makes me feel like I don't know, you should be maybe able to tell. But how can I say that when I'm not in his shoes from his perspective, not knowing what drug he on, not knowing if they popping pills, if he drinking, you know. But yeah, he was telling me stuff that I didn't know. I had to ask him questions, you know. So that made it to where, well, even if we both were intoxicated, you were more aware than I was, because I was out until I woke up in the bathroom. Yeah, so, but it wasn't an argument. I just had to pull the details, you know. I had to ask, like, you know, I didn't know if it had already happened with anybody else, and I just hadn't awoken yet, because I heard other voices, you know. And that even was crazy, because in the movie, the girl woke up in the bathroom where the first guy was like performing oral sex on her. So he was molesting her, you know, but his friend walked in like, bro, you still going? So the friend walked into the bathroom while that was going on, and that's when she came to. And that just was crazy to me, because I'm like, I was in the bathroom. I came to in the bathroom during the act, and I heard voices as if folks were opening the door, coming into the bathroom, you know. So, yeah, it was just, that was crazy to watch that movie or whatever, and feel all that, see all that. But, and I wasn't even gonna talk about it. It's like, because I didn't know really like how I felt for real. But maybe perhaps it was something for me to talk about, because it's like coming from that time of life, for myself. Like, that wasn't the first time I had a sexual encounter where I blacked out. And again, it can be hard for me to label it as rape, because these are people who I really considered like my friends for real. So there was another time where that did happen, and I didn't know it happened. The dude had to tell me after it was all done. I didn't know. I thought I was on my period. I had told him, because me and him, this was a whole different time. But alcohol, I remember it was like 4th of July or something, and I remember we were already flirting. Like, we were interested in talking to each other and stuff, and that had already begun. And but I literally remember like him trying to make something happen, and I'm like, I'm on my period. We can't do that. I'm on my period. So we didn't do anything. So then I remember, like, during the night where I'm drunk, and I did remember us like we going to the house, and you know, nobody else see us, so we kissing. I remember that, like, we were making out. But I didn't even think that we could do anything beyond that, because I was on my period, to my understanding. So I just remember, like, the next day we're talking, and he's like, or the next day, or maybe 2 days later or something, he's like, I'm mad at you. And I'm like, why are you mad at me? And by the way, I didn't even feel like anything had happened. Like, I wasn't missing no clothes, you know, none of that. So I remember him saying, like, oh, I'm mad at you. I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you mad at me? He's like, well, you told me you was on your period. And I was like, I am, or I was, or something like that. I don't even think I had woke up all the way, because I think I had to look myself. And he was like, no, like, I checked, I saw it. I was like, what are you talking about? I don't remember none of this. And he was like, yeah, you had a pad on, but it was nothing on it. Which that blew me all the way the fuck away, because my period never worked like that. Like, it would be at least a little bit, you know. And so I was like, I had to check myself, cause yeah, I don't think I had like checked. So I think it was like a morning conversation where I'm awaking and I'm at home, and yeah, he said that, and I was like, I had to check myself, and I'm like, well, and it was spotless. I checked, and I was like, wait, but how did you check? Like, how do you know that? And he was like, we had sex. I was like, no, we did not. And he's telling me, like, you don't remember? I said, I don't remember none of that. So, but, you know, yeah. So, needless to say, y'all, I don't drink no more. I don't drink no more. And even though those are situations that happened way back a little bit, like it was years ago, over 10 years ago type shit. Then again, these are people who I still continue to like hang out with. And that was another thing that got me with the movie, because the girl did too. Like, she was still like in their company like the next day. But then I was wondering, like, is that like a tactic on their end to make her feel like it's all good, you know? But these were people who I still spent time with at different times, you know? So I didn't take it as they were trying to do me harm type of thing. It was too much alcohol. Yeah. So these days I think of alcohol like it's just not, it don't need to be nowhere around me, nowhere inside of me. Because my thing is, I was always a smart person. I don't even want to say girl. A smart person, you know, but alcohol would really like take that away from me. Take my intelligence away from me, my consciousness. And I realize that now, like, me wanting to be somebody who's very good with my intuition and wanting to like be basically own that gift because I have it, and realizing alcohol don't help with it. You know, alcohol does not help with me owning my intuition and being intuitive and utilizing my gift to the fullest extent that I can. You know. So anyway, that was just a very interesting situation. Me watching that movie again. I wasn't planning to talk about it when I pressed record on this. I was going to talk about growth. I literally wrote down in my journal growth, preservation, restriction, which is funny though because it does relate to where now, you know, like I have grown. Being 36 years old now, it's like I have just decided, not just because of those situations, but really of like all my life, dealing with guys, dealing with family, betrayals, you know, friendships that were actually more harmful than good, just being in bad situations due to my connections or due to like where I lived. I've had to just really snatch back ownership of my life because nobody else is going to live it for me. And you know what else? Nobody else is going to be protecting me better than I can protect myself. Nobody else is going to be looking out for me better than I can look out for myself. And that's the thing with alcohol, ain't it? Like when you go out and drink and stuff, it's like, who's gonna be like, not all the time, but say you got a group of y'all and somebody got to drive, so who gonna be the designated driver type of stuff. So now, as one of the people that are drinking, you're dependent on, somebody else to look out for you or for y'all because they're gonna be the designated driver. So now your care is in their hands to an extent. I kind of had that too in college with my roommate, one of my first roommates. I remember getting drunk, blacking out. Luckily, I ain't do nothing crazy, but a part of the reason why was because my roommate was looking out for me. And what's crazy is there was a guy that I had a connection with and crush on, and I remember, like, my memories came back later because they was like, yeah, we had to keep you away from E. I was like, why? But I did have a huge crush on him, and it was like kind of mutual. Like we would flirt and stuff. Like when we would have parties, we would dance with each other and stuff. So I guess I had gotten so drunk, and I was like in the hallway of the dorm, and um, he had came into the hallway like as well, and we was like yelling at each other like, tweet. And I got really excited. I guess I do remember. I remembered afterwards, like the memories started coming back later. And I think he was like coming to like give me a hug and stuff, and was like, but it was just crazy because my friends at the time, like my roommate and like some other people that was around who were more sober, it was like they understood the assignment for them at that time, which was like, yeah, no, keep him away. Keep him away from her right now. Like, no, this is not this is not a good time. Where me, like, I was new to this partying scene. Like, I never drank before going to college. Never had gotten drunk. I think this was my first time drunk, actually. And yeah, she said we had to keep you locked up in the room. Cause y'all was trying to get at each other, and that was just not a good situation. So it was like made clear, to them. Um, but yeah, she my roommate, she was like my caretaker when I was like out of my body. So it's stuff like that, and it's like I don't. First of all, I don't even got nobody in my life at this point that I trust like that no more. You know, mm-mm, nope. Everybody that I've trusted in that kind of ways, like, it's been a letdown. So, but I think it's no need to like cry about that. It's just more so the lesson of that ain't my life. Like, first of all, that ain't a life for nobody to really live, but it definitely ain't the life that I'm assigned to live. But I think it was something I had to learn because my family, biologically, my biological family, everybody was strung out on something, all the adults. So, it was low key like hereditary. And it came from me too. I had to wise up after realizing alcohol was attached to just about all of my sexual experiences that I had ever had. Just about all of them. Just about all of them. Then I think about it like, oh, alcohol lowers your inhibitions. It lowers your ability to make good judgment calls. And so it makes sense that I'm not with none of them dudes no more that I ever had sexual experiences with alcohol involved, you know. But then, like, the concepts of like growth, preservation, restriction. Like, yeah, now I restrict myself, but I don't even restrict myself. I just don't allow it. I'm sober, from alcohol. But then I think I spoke about this in a previous recording. Like, last year was the first full year I went with no drinking alcohol. And so now, with the conclusion of it being the new year, this new year, basically, technically it was right after Christmas, but I just go with the new year. It's like, now I don't want it. I don't want for it. I realized I'm a lot better without it. I feel a lot more like my old self before I started even drinking. Like, before I started even drinking, I was really big on like activity, like sports. Like, I played basketball. I was a dancer. I was a runner. I would run for endurance just on my own, you know. And I started going to college and drinking and stuff, and all my power was just being sapped away from me in that way. I would get back into exercise, like on and off, but I never would stick with it. And I think a part of the reason why was because of my drinking. Because, you would drink, get drunk, you're hungover, now you got to eat carbs to feel better. Like, so any dieting or any of that is just out the window. Any type of routines, it ain't happening, it ain't sticking. And I was never a strong one with the bounce back from drinking. I was never strong in that. Like, oh yeah, I drank on the weekend, but I'm ready for class on Monday. That was a never situation. That never happened. So yeah, I remember trying to get back into running while in college, and I remember throwing up while running. And I was like, that's never happened before. Like, all my youthful power and mental fortitude I just gave it away with the alcohol. But now, even though I'm not back to running, my endurance activity is with the Stairmaster right now. So that's my focus, to like master the Stairmaster. I want to basically treat how I used to treat running, like endurance runs that I would do. I want that to be my deal with the Stairmaster. Because the only other thing with running is like the natural elements that get to me, my nose, like allergies type of stuff. Like, I don't like it. That's the only other thing there. So I prefer to be indoors when exercising these days. And the Stairmaster is a challenge. I sweat, it is not it ain't for no weakling. Especially if you're doing for endurance. It ain't for no weakling. And so that's what I'm focused on now. To also like continue working out. Get back to like working on my heart strength, my heart's, endurance. That's where endurance comes from, cardio. Yeah. But yeah, I got that focus back. Just, I'm still working on my energy, because I think this year I'm working on making sure I'm eventually going to the gym 5 days a week, every morning before work. Take the weekends off. But so far, making it to 4 days a week, making it there 4 days a week is already hard. So I realized like the goal then is getting up to 5 days a week, and then just improving and developing on that 5 days, like in terms of how long I go and the levels, like increasing my levels on the Stairmaster. I don't really need to do nothing else outside of it, to be honest. Stairmaster is a full body Because after a while, you are working every. My arms be burning, and I don't even be moving them. you know. So, but I think I did need to talk about this then, like that whole situation, because now I feel better. Like after watching the movie, I was a little bit like confused. Like, how do I feel? You know. But after talking about it, I do feel better. And it is like I've been through a lot, but I'm at a point in life where I don't know, it's like a little culmination of wisdom type of situation going on. Even though I'm not even 40 yet, and they say 40s is when your life really start, as a true adult, because it is still a lot of learning. Going through your 30s, you know, and now I'm 36. So that's closer now to 40 than it is 30. But yeah, talking about that make me feel better. Because again, like, it just highlights my relationship with alcohol, and just also just the fact that I always, no matter what I've been through, I always choose healing at the end of the day. Even though I've struggled with that. Like, oh, I don't want to be here no more. I don't belong here no more on this earth. Da da da. In this world, it just want to eat me up and spit me out. But it's like, nah, I've just had to learn and embrace who I am in this world, which, yeah, I'm a lot different from a lot of other people. But also, there's a lot of things I've gone through that other people have also experienced. I think that is all I want to talk about right now. I feel like at this point, I'm treating this channel as like an audio diary, because it can be hard to just like write about stuff like this. Like, I want to talk. I want to talk about it. And I did mention I do have a new therapist, but and I've seen her, I think now 3 times, but it's different. It's a little different. I don't know how long we're gonna last, because it's a little different from the previous therapist I've had. But I also just kind of was trying to be ahead, like, because something had happened recently, and I'm like, maybe I need therapy, and I don't know, maybe I do, maybe I don't. It's just, it's free. It's a part of my employee benefit, but I am feeling like maybe I'm good. I don't know. So, we'll see. But I'm about to get back to my break and just embracing my time off. Probably go find another good movie to watch. And this is what, episode 6. I think I'm gonna title this one Sober. Sobriety, sober, something like that. Something about being sober, because that's what I ended up talking about. So anyways, thank you for listening. Till next time.